Alright, we got it. Mic works. Get that out of here. Do I not have internet? Maybe that's an issue. I have it. Okay. I feel very hot right now. Yeah, I'm even bigger. Now let's go. Oh, what if I just go to, that. Oh my gosh. Maybe eating would help me feel better. It's hard to focus. Maybe that's why. Like, I've been really wanting to sit down and just get some work done, but it's been really hard. I haven't been. Now I'm realizing that it's hard to focus. Alright, cool. This is good. Alright, cool. Fine now. Oh my god. What can you do in lucid dreaming? Maybe this part can bring him to. What can you do in lucid dreaming? What is lucid? Sorry, I'm chewing out loud. Chewing out loud, and I am chewing out loud. It's hard. I'm less aware because I'm sick, I think. Talk about how to lucid dream. Ugh. Need headphones. Where are my headphones? I guess this would be better. I got my sunglasses on. Sorry, my blue light blocking glasses on. And I'm gonna work. Here. Let us do that. Dead. It is. Pretty much dead. Well, it'll last us a little bit of time.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
My lucid dreaming has become so, where I you know that feeling
Yeah, I
where
don't like these glasses.
in a dream where you're in a high precipice and you think you're gonna fall.
Right.
Now in a dream, I can jump off of it. I know, oh, I'm in a dream. I'm jumping. I'm gonna float or fly or sink slowly and safely to the ground. I get the same feeling in real life on a high. We were crossing the Mississippi once, and I was behind the wheel, and I started to have this panic attack, and fucking Chaley's editing in the passenger seat, and I'm like, take the wheel, take the wheel. I'm freaking out a bit. So now, like I need to be a fucking regular dosage of Xanax.
Well, hold on. Before you get into that, let me take you back to the lucid dreaming thing. Like, when did that start?
Over the years, I fucking sleep.
Recently.
Well, no, over
5
many
years? Like, how many years?
It's getting better all the time.
You're better at lucid dreaming than you
Yeah.
were before. Was it a?
I had to come out this morning. I took a Seroquel, which I try not to take.
What's that?
It's a very powerful antipsychotic that it's probably bad for your liver.
Why are you taking an antipsychotic?
Because I fucking sleep. I can sleep like 14 hours. I'll get up to piss, go like lucidly out of the dream, remembering the dream, and go back. Hang on, I have to piss. Just like I pissed here on the podcast, I can get up out of a dream, say, please hold dream, piss lucidly. I'm not in a closet like Sean Rouse.
So Seroquel
And go
does
back-
that for you?
Yeah, and that's
Whoa.
why I use it very sparingly.
Jesus Christ, that sounds amazing.
It's fucking the best. Like,
What else does it do, though? What's the bad
problem
parts?
is you cannot share dreams with people. I know it's a hack premise,
Mm.
but where I woke up this morning, I went to bed after fucking Red Band finally called
That'd
me
be sick.
and told me, oh, yeah, I prompted Joe Rogan to finally respond to you. What time am I going to be? I didn't know what time I'm supposed to be here. He told me the address.
I think you were texting the wrong number.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
fuck.
No, with me. With me.
Do you want to, if you want to put a $500,000 bet, I'll use your $500,000 as a down payment on that fucking Comedian Grove.
This comedian girl.
I'll show you the texts.
What we were just saying something though.
Yeah, about lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreams. So
So I was in such a state when I woke up this morning from dreams where, you know, the dream where you wake up and go, oh, fucking thank God everything was going
right, but
poorly.
this is what I want to know. Did the lucid dreams start independently of this Seroquel stuff?
Oh,
or did they start
yeah,
with
no,
it?
since I was a kid.
Oh, you've always had lucid dreams.
I remember when I was probably an early teenager, the first time that I could correlate that stomach drop feeling of when you're about to fall off of something, but you could fly.
Yeah.
Like, do you have flying dreams?
Sometimes.
Yeah, but those have grown where, okay, now I can fly. Now I know I'm in a dream. I can kind of control it. I know what's going on, and I can wake up and piss and go back to bed and get right back into the same dream.
Did you read books about this? Is this
No.
something that you just figured out as you were doing it, as you were having these lucid dreams?
Yeah, but the same problem that everyone who has dreams, you can't quite remember it, but the feeling, the stomach drop feeling, I'm floating, things
Right.
that connect your brain back to okay, I know I'm in a dream, but I'm not going to wake up. Let's fuck with this.
But you got better over the years just by having lucid dreams over and over again and realizing what's the thing that you do that gets you out of the dream. Don't do that, and just figured out what to do to stay in that
Because
state.
sometimes you wake up, or sometimes you're only alerted
they
to the fact that you're
attached?
dreaming because you hit bap, bap, bap. Oh, I get a text message. Okay, reality's on the outside. It's fucking me up. Shut off your phone before you go to bed.
But the Seroquel is more
It just-
extreme. It's
But
bigger
it makes
than.
you sleep longer? I don't know. I don't know the science behind it.
But is a Seroquel making you have more lucid dreams or better control of your lucid dreams?
It's making me sleep longer and making me more aware that I'm in a dream. I don't know. I
if you
know
was a-
Seroquel dreams. I fucking lived an entire these altered states where I woke up and I'm like, is there still a receipt in my pocket from that dream that I can prove there's two different worlds? It was that fucked up, but you can't explain that to people. I wanted to call anyone. I woke up and I was like, it was just a dream.
There's a movie about recording dreams that was pretty fucking good that I saw the other night. I think it's called Come True, and it's about apparently there is some technology that they're working on right now where they can record certain aspects of your thoughts. Like if you're thinking about a triangle, it'll show an image of a triangle. And they
I
think
read something about it.
yeah, they think they're going to get to the point where they're going to be able to get at least some sort of a reasonable facsimile of the visuals that you're having in your dreams. Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience.
If you know that you don't snore, if your partner says, I don't hear you snoring, that's partial confirmation that you do not snore. If you are curious, and everyone should be curious as to whether they snore, I would say download an app and we can link to it. I have no affiliation with whatsoever. I pay my money, I think it's like pennies on the dollar, I think it's like $2 a month or something.
That is a perfect segue for lucid dreaming, which is the awareness that we are dreaming while in a dream. Is lucid dreaming real? Can we train ourselves to lucid dream? And what is the value of lucid dreaming? Is it just a fun game we can play? Is there any reason we should attempt to lucid dream if we don't already, or encourage more lucid dreaming?
Or even any reason we shouldn't, perhaps. Lucid dreaming, you beautifully gave the definition. Loosely defined, lucid dreaming is that you simply know that you're dreaming whilst you are dreaming. So in other words, as the dream is unfolding, you gain awareness of, this is a dream, but I'm still dreaming. At that moment, by science definition, you are in a state of lucidity. But most people, as the dream is unfolding, you gain awareness of, this is a dream, but I'm still dreaming. At that moment, by science definition, you are in a state of lucidity. But most people don't really mean that when they say, oh, I'm a lucid dreamer. They mean, yes, I become aware that I'm dreaming as I am dreaming. And then I take over the reins of control. And then starting to decide exactly what it is you dream and how you dream. So now I'm on the ground and I'm walking through a park and I decide that I just want to take off and I want to fly over the river, or I want to fly out over San Francisco Bay and take a tour. So I decide to start flying. That is what most people think of as lucid dreaming. If you were to think about it, this thing called dreaming, as we've described, is utterly absurd as a state based on its psychotic kind of nature and characteristics, to then start to say it's that idiotic and strange and bizarre, but P.S., I can also take control of it and decide what I want to do with it, injects a whole dose of disbelief into a process that's already unbelievable by itself. So science for a while just thought, this is charlatan type stuff that these people claim that they can control their dreams. How can you ever prove that? Because don't forget, when you go into REM sleep and you dream, you are paralyzed. So I can't just wake up and say, I was lucid dreaming. That's not proof. I have to, in some ways, be able to demonstrate that I'm lucid dreaming as I begin to become lucid. But I can't because I can't communicate with you as the scientist. Well, it turns out that you can. One of the things we spoke about in the first episode is that, yes, you get these rapid eye movements, but think about what that means. I told you that when you dream, your brain paralyzes all of your voluntary muscles so that you can dream and dream safely and you don't act out your dreams, with the exception that at least two muscle groups, your extraocular muscles that move your eyes and your inner ear muscles, for some reason, they are spurred from the paralysis.
Bruh. I feel not good. Guess I could listen to like songs. Uh-huh. Alright, I'm going to sorry. Oh god, dude. I'm on death's row for real. Alright.
So you can still move. Otherwise, you could never have rapid eye movements. So the eyes, all of a sudden, because we have electrodes up top and below and left and right sides, we can measure what you're doing with your eyes during sleep. In fact, we have to do this to determine, are you awake or are you in REM sleep? The brain activity by itself doesn't tell us that. We measure your muscle activity, and if you lose muscle activity and your brain is very active, and the eye channels that we're recording start to show these darting back and forth signals, we know you're in REM sleep. That's how we define it. So that then suggested to us we can use the eye movements to create a form of Morse code signaling from the participant to the experimenter. And so let's say that with this claimed lucid dreamer who comes to my sleep center, we'll create a very specific agreed upon code, which is that as you start dreaming, I can see that. And when you become lucid in that dream, firstly, give me 3 leftward flicks of your eyes. We never see that in dreaming. It's a very deliberative act. And then when you say, give me 3 leftward flicks of your eyes, we never see that.
Alright, so I think the plan for this is I want to be more bullet pointy. Man, here we go, I'm trying to get a grain. Here we go, I'm chilling on the beach in the sand. Here we go, man, I'm just playing with my man and I'm down with my bro. And I'm chilling, man, I hit him with the elbow. Then we got a wrestle and I throw him on the turf. And he got some OP with the nerf. And then I shoot my guns and the bullets are foam. And I started to roam, now I'm killing and I'm chilling in death. And that happened when I did drugs and meth. I went from beach, death. Beach to meth to death. Yeah, here we go. Rapping like that, don't know. Chillin'. Chillin'. Hey. And the way that I act is rare. Rapping. Hey. Hey. Rapping. Sit. Rapping. Rapping. Hey. Like, ram, ram. Chilling like I'm him, and I'm looking, shooting my shot, and I'm dunking on the rim, and elation, and I'm trying to.
In dreaming. It's a very deliberative act. And then when you say, okay, I've started the lucid dreaming and you've agreed with the
That is a perfect segue for lucid
All right,
dreaming.
let's see if
which
I'm
is,
accurate here.
The awareness that we are dreaming while in a dream. Is lucid dreaming real? Can we train ourselves to lucid dream? And what is the value of
speed
lucid
now.
dreaming? Is it just a fun game we can play? Is there any reason we should attempt to lucid dream if we don't already, or encourage more lucid dreaming?
or even any reason we shouldn't, perhaps. Lucid dreaming, you beautifully gave the definition. Loosely defined, lucid dreaming is that you simply know that you're dreaming whilst you are dreaming. So, in other words, as the dream is unfolding, you
You know you're dreaming while you're dreaming.
gain awareness of, this is a dream, but I'm still dreaming. At that moment, by science definition, you are in a state of lucidity. But most people don't really mean that when they say, oh, I'm a lucid dreamer. They mean, yes, I become aware that I'm dreaming as I am dreaming. And then I take over the reins of control. And then starting to decide exactly what it is you dream and how you dream. So now I'm on the ground and I'm walking through a park and I decide that I just want to take off and I want to fly over the river, or I want to fly out over San Francisco Bay and take a tour. So I decide to start flying. That is what most people think of as lucid dreaming. If you were to think about it, this thing called dreaming, as we've described, is utterly absurd as a state based on its psychotic kind of nature and characteristics. To then start to say it's that idiotic and strange and bizarre, but P.S. I can also take control of it and decide what I want to do with it, injects a whole dose of disbelief into a process that's already unbelievable by itself. So science for a while just thought, this is charlatan type stuff, that these people claim that they can control their dreams. But how can you ever prove that? Because don't forget, when you go into REM sleep and you dream, you are paralyzed. So I can't just wake up and say, I was lucid dreaming. That's not proof. I have to in some ways be able to demonstrate that I'm lucid dreaming as I begin to become lucid. But I can't, because I can't communicate with you as the scientist. Well, it turns out that you can. One of the things we spoke about in the first episode is that, yes, you get these rapid eye movements, but think about what that means. I told you that when you dream, your brain paralyzes all of your voluntary muscles so that you can dream and dream safely and you don't act out your dreams, with the exception that at least two muscle groups, your extraocular muscles that move your eyes and your inner ear muscles, for some reason they are spurred from the paralysis so you can still move. Otherwise, you could never have rapid eye movements. So the eyes, all of a sudden, because we have electrodes up top and below and left and right sides, we can measure what you're doing with your eyes during sleep. In fact, we have to do this to determine, are you awake or are you in REM sleep? The brain activity by itself doesn't tell us that. We measure your muscle activity, and if you lose muscle activity and your brain is very active, and the eye channels that we're recording start to show these darting back and forth signals, we know you're in REM sleep. That's how we define it. So that then suggested to us we can use the eye movements to create a form of Morse code signaling from the participant to the experimenter. And so let's say that with this claimed lucid dreamer who comes to my sleep center, we'll create a very specific agreed upon code, which is that as you start dreaming, I can see that. And when you become lucid in that dream, firstly, give me 3 leftward flicks of your eyes. We never see that in dreaming. It's a very deliberative act. And when you become lucid in that dream, firstly, give me 3 leftward flicks of your eyes. We never see that in dreaming. It's a very deliberative act. And then when you say, okay, I've started the lucid dreaming, and you've agreed with the experimenter that you're then going to start moving your hands. You're going to start to move your right hand. Well, when you start to move your right hand, give me 4 flicks to the right. And when you're moving your left hand in the dream, give me 4 flicks to the left. And so there we create this very specifics that you're then going to start moving your hands. You're going to start to move your right hand. But when you start to move your right hand, give me 4 flicks to the right. And when you're moving your left hand in the dream, give me 4 flicks to the left. And so there we create this very specific to the right. And when you're moving your left hand in the dream, give me 4 flicks to the left. And so there we create this very specific instigational code. But then how does that help us? Well, we can have you sleeping in a brain scanner. And before the brain scanning session, when you sleep, I have you just go into the brain scanner awake, and I say, move your left hand, and your right motor cortex is going to be lighting up. And then I'm going to say, move your right hand, and your left motor cortex is going to be lighting up. And for you and me, I build up a very unique map of your left hand motor memory representation and your right hand motor memory representation. And if it's the left hand, as I said, it's the right side of the brain. If it's the right hand, it's the left side of the brain. So now I've got ground truth as to where your hand representation is on your motor cortex in my brain scanner. And then I'm going to put you back in the brain scanner, let you go into sleep, let you start dreaming. Then you give me 3 left flicks. Good. This person has now become lucid. And now he's doing 4 rightward flicks, which means he's clasping his right hand over and over again. And then he gives me 4 leftward flicks, which means he switched over. He's now using his left hand in his dream. By the way, I'm looking at the participant inside of the brain scanner through the glass. And of course, they're not moving their hand. Why? Because they're paralyzed. But in the dream, they are claiming, based on their eye movements, that they are moving their hands. We bring them back out of the brain scanner and we analyze their brain scans during the period when they said, I'm moving my right hand, I'm moving my left hand. What did we see? Sure enough, we saw the same, and we being the Royal We, it's a great study by a German group. Sure enough, you see exactly the same pattern. It was scientific ground truth evidence that when a lucid dreamer claims they are doing something in their dream, the brain scans that we received confirmed that indeed that's exactly what was happening.
It's just that none of the signal is being sent out to the periphery, to the limbs, because there's that
Cut off at the spinal cord.
descending inhibition.
Yeah. Yeah, at the level of the alpha motor neurons of your spinal cord.
Incredible. So here we are talking about lucid dreaming, which is a kind of mixed level of consciousness. Dreaming, of course, but also lucidity. That is an awareness that one is dreaming. Now, in just about every one of the 5 episodes leading up to the 6th episode in this series, you emphasize the key importance of deep sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. And in many ways, some of the problems that arise from waking up in the middle of the night too many times or being in shallow sleep as opposed to deep sleep. Lucid dreaming, it seems, is a kind of a case of light sleep. because of one's awareness, or is it? So that's one first question. And then just very quickly, an anecdote. When I was a kid, I used to read these like boys' life magazines and those kind of things. I forget what they were called, but in the back they would have these ads for products like X-ray glasses, or or sea monkeys, which turned out to be brine shrimp. What a disappointment that was. I thought they were monkeys on the package. They were little monkeys, but they were brine shrimp. There was a product advertised that I in fact purchased, which was an eye mask that had a little blinking red light in one corner, and it said "Learn to lucid dream." And the idea was that you would put this thing on and look at the red light just prior to going to sleep, and then you go to sleep with this thing on, and then at some point in your sleep you would see or think that you saw the red light flashing. And the idea was that because you were in the eye mask, you were in enough of a dream that you would be able to link the waking state recognition of the light, et cetera. Okay, people get it. I purchased that product. I used it. I thought perhaps there was an effect, quote unquote, where I could lucid dream, but I wouldn't consider myself an avid lucid dreamer, although sometimes I am aware that I'm dreaming. And usually it's in pleasant dreams, in which case I'm usually like, let's keep this going. Things like flying and being particularly talented in a sport that in my waking life I had minimal talent, things like that. Okay, so is lucid dreaming a case of shallow sleep and therefore something to avoid? Or is lucid dreaming something quite different? And is there any advantage to learning to lucid dream or enhancing one's amount of lucid dreaming? And if so, how should one go about that?
So I'll take the question, should you be lucid dreaming? And I think I can argue it both sides right now, and we don't have a very clear answer yet. The first side is if you take a step back and ask from an evolutionary perspective, let's assume for aesthetic between, if it was so powerful, it was clearly perspective, like the argument like natural lucid dreamers are at the force because they're going to come and take over the world. So some individuals have asked the question, is there any changes to your sleep or even the benefits of sleep when you are a lucid dreamer versus not? And what's interesting is that for some papers that have been published, after nights when people report lucid dreaming, they wake up and they don't feel as restored. They don't feel as refreshed by their sleep in the morning, suggesting, just as you sort of hinted at there, that the lucid dreaming state is associated with perhaps a less deep or more shallow form of REM sleep, or a more active state of REM sleep, perhaps too active, so that it's fatiguing and depleting. And upon awakening, you don't get that memory and that body, that brain and body reset. There are, however, papers that have not found that result. So I think right now we don't truly know if the lucid state is associated with unrefreshing sleep and unrestorative sleep. But if that proves true, then I think that that's one argument. The other argument I would put forward against it from that perspective would be, think about what we've said regarding the functions of dreaming, memory processing, but particularly emotional therapy to gift us mental health. If we then come along and say, presumably, nature, through millions of years of evolution, has come up with this blueprint manifesto of exactly what should be served up on the dream menu this evening, there's a reason for that, and that reason has been sculpted over millions of years to become wonderfully optimal for us and our emotional mental health. And then we come along in the space of a lifetime, and perhaps you could argue a little bit hubristically, we think, I perhaps know a little bit better than a couple of million years of evolution. I'm going to push those things off the rank ordering chart of what gets served up into my dreams, and I'm going to supersede that and decide what I would prefer to be dreaming about. And again, I think that there's no good evidence that you could argue that that isn't true, but equally that it is true. We just don't know yet. If that is the case, that lucid dreaming does produce unrestorative sleep, in some ways it also begs the question, well, what is happening in your brain during lucid dreaming? Is there anything in your brain that would explain why you don't feel refreshed? And early studies looking at lucid dreams when we put them inside of a brain scanner, I told you at the start of this episode, dream sleep has a unique brain signature. Memory regions, emotion regions, motor regions, and visual regions, they're all lighting up. But then there's this one part of your brain that does the opposite, which is the lateral left and right sides of your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational thinking, controlling regions of your brain. Those go offline. But early studies demonstrated that the activity, including the electrical activity over those frontal regions, would be down as you were in non-lucid dreaming. But then when people rise back up and said, now I'm lucid dreaming with those leftward flicks, that activity was brought back online, which makes a lot of mechanistic sense, which is all of a sudden the part of your brain that prevented you from having rational logical control has been re-engaged. And as a consequence, you yourself can re-engage in volitional dictation of the outcome of what you're dreaming. Some studies, however, have not replicated that finding, because when they looked at it and they took out some sort of what we call these covariates or these confounding factors, and I can bore you with what that principally is, it removed that result. And all of a sudden, the prefrontal cortex went back to seemingly being non-active. They did find an alternate result. What they found is that the electrical activity of the brain, when you go into a lucid dreaming state, seems to be a bit more frenetic, a bit more active versus non-lucid dreaming states of electrical brain activity. And if that's the case, if the cortex, which is already active, is forced to become even more frenetically active when you are in this lucid dream state, is that part of the reason that when you wake up from the lucid dreaming and you go about your day, your brain just doesn't seem to be at the same same operating ability because it's been fatigued above and beyond. It's like saying I do a standard workout and I always go to 1 or 2 reps before failure. But now as I'm lucid dreaming, I am constantly going to complete muscle failure. And then the next few days, if you go and do a workout, and I've been listening to you and I've been trading workouts, I don't want to do an Andrew Huberman workout. Trust me, this man is.
Mine are short and sweet.
We'll work out at some point together. But it's almost as though then no big surprise that after you do a legs day, if I were to wake you up the next day and say you're back doing legs, you say I can't do that. I'm toast. I'm host. My legs are done. And that's what we think could perhaps explain why you get that fatigue. Does that make some sense?
Makes very good sense. And in the absence of better language to put to it, I've long thought that one of the best things about sleep is that we are not engaging our frontal cortex
states of electrical brain activity. And if that's the case, if the cortex, which is already active, is forced to become even more frenetically active when you are in this lucid dream state, is that part of the reason that when you wake up from the lucid dreaming and you go about your day, your brain just doesn't seem to be at the same operating ability because it's been fatiguing? I am to do an Andrew Huberman prize that after you do a legs day, if I was playing about sleep is that we are not engaging for things such as this as well, but I think one of the most wonderful things, something going to take, what path is it? And I think you just did that leads to not lucid dream. I'd rather just have very robust, perhaps, dreams of different kinds and try to make sense of them once I wake up. It's so tempting though, isn't it? Because like you, I've had those experiences. I remember an amazing dream where I was snowboarding and I'm a below average snowboarder. And all of a sudden, I was just taking jumps and I was doing all sorts of X game.
You're Sean White.
It was unbelievable. And I felt it. I was so happy in the moment. And I remember waking up and just thinking, firstly, I'm sad I'm waking up.
Right.
And second, that was sublime. And all I want to do tomorrow night is go back and now I'm going to switch my snowboard out for a dirt bike. And I'm going to do the dirt bike X Games version of it. And I'm going to be doing all sorts of Superman.
Can't get greedy with Mother Nature.
I know.
She body slams you.
I get it. I know if people out there are enjoying it or wanting to do that. And by the way, I didn't answer, I'm so sorry, your red light question, which is if you wanted to do it, how can you do it if you're not doing it already? There are, in fact, 2 scientific methods that have been developed. One of them actually has a vague whiff of relationship to the light device, although that's one of those things where if a friend sent it to me or a random person said, oh, Dr. Graff, I've seen this in the back of a magazine. How do you think it works? I would just say, please don't spend your $199 on something that is going to
I think I was about 11 or 12 years old. I think it cost something like, I don't know, $10.99 or something, which at the time for me was a lot of money. But I had a paper route back then. And I had a little bit of a dispensable income. But it was cool because it was probably one of my first experiments. I've been running experiments since I was a kid. But I think self-experimentation can be fun.
I didn't see that. But sorry, coming back to your red light, the 2 methods, one of them is something called the mild technique, which stands for the mnemonic induction of lucid dreaming. ILD. Mnemonic just meaning a memory-based technique. Induction, obviously what we're trying to induce something. And what is it? We're trying to induce lucid dreaming. And it's a very simple technique, which is that you consistently rehearse before bed this notion that I will remember my dreams and I will instigate control in my dreams. And you do this, and it sounds just so hokey and nonsensical. Sure enough, you do this over and over again. The probability that you will lucid dream increases. I think the better one, and maybe the more effective one, is called the reality testing method. And it was probably made famous in a brilliant movie. If you haven't seen it, everyone should watch it. It's called Waking Life. And it is an amazing, Richard Linklater, the director. Just for the philosophy alone in it, it will blow your mind. It's exceptional. But it's a beautiful treatise on dreaming and lucid dreaming. And in that, they describe a method where during the waking day, you are constantly, perhaps you can set an alarm, and you're constantly reminded to go over to, let's say, the wall and flip the light switch on and off, on and off, on and off. And sure enough, what happens? The lights go on and off. Why? Because it's the real world, and it complies and it's complicit with the laws of physics. So you do this time and time again. You start to train yourself that at unique moments throughout your waking experience, you always go over and you test some version of reality. Or it could just be, I'm going to press my hand into something solid, and this table is resisting my hand right now as I'm pressing, and I just keep doing that. And then at some point, it becomes routine enough that you start to do that same thing when you are dreaming. But now, when I press my hand against the table or press my hand against the wall, my hand goes straight through the wall. Or I flip the light switch on and off, and the lights do nothing. And all of a sudden,
Yo, Chucky, what's good? Yo. I'm streaming, but I can mute myself if you like.
Well, I was gonna.
Use it? You can use it. It's behind the green screen. Let's see what's work going. It's going good. Who are you, Chucky? Work is going good. Watching Matt Walker right now. About a lucid dream. Taking notes. We're good. Especially working hard. Huh? Hard at work or hardly work? One of the two. Looking. Co-working. It's co-working. Reality check. Do something pre. Something. do something like um something like pressing your hand. Always need something to fidget or do while I work. Oh, so like to okay, so you like listen to this while you're working? Is that kind of what you're saying? What is your work? Do something like pressing your hand against pressing your I guess I don't need I can explain. I want reality checks this. Um working on marketing. Marketing's interesting.
And that's my cue to say, I'm not awake, am I? I'm dreaming. And therefore, at that point, I gain lucidity and it increases the probability. So those are the two methods that people have used. And statistically, scientifically, they do seem to have some degree of success.
I love it. I love it. I personally am going to opt to
Chewing
not encourage lucid
habit
dreaming because I'm young myself
work?
because I'm working on getting my
Sometimes I might fidget with my hands, but something in my hands. I don't know. I guess there's nothing really at this table here, but I'll listen to something like this while I'm working. Like right now I'm not because I'm pausing and unpausing videos, but when I'm not doing that, I'll just something like this, listen to stuff. That's pretty much it. When I'm playing when I'm listening to videos though, a funny fidget that I have is like I guess if you want to say like sometimes it's not really because I'm not taking notes while I'm watching the video, so I don't really have call it. If I'm not taking notes, I don't know if I consider it as much work, but I'll still be listening to videos for the purpose of learning for work. And I will play Tetris on my phone while listening to the video. For some reason that helps me. But sometimes then I realize I'm not distracted. But sure, yeah, I'll try a pencil. See if that does anything. Let's see. Actually, pencil is or a pen would work too. I would think. I got a pen. There we go. Pen right. I'm not as much of a fidgeter. I think I used to be a pretty big fidgeter, but now I don't. But I don't know. Sometimes I do.
sleep deeper and longer through the night with fewer waking episodes.
We will get there.
We will
Do
get
not
there
worry.
using the tools described in the previous and this episode of the series that we're doing here. My sleep's been
It's so tempting though, isn't it? Because like you, I've had those experiences. I remember an amazing dream where I was snowboarding and I'm a below average snowboarder. And all of a sudden, I was just taking jumps and I was doing all sorts of X game.
You're Sean White.
I was.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable,
Yeah.
and I felt it. And I was so happy.
Interestingly enough, the videos that I post include me doing challenges, spinning the pen, like how people can like spin it really fast on their fingers. A skill that I might learn for a video. But to have holding stuff in my mouth like bottle caps and all. Yeah, I chew on bottle caps too.
Happy in the moment. And I remember waking up and just thinking, firstly, I'm sad I'm waking up.
Right.
And second, that was sublime. And all I want to do tomorrow night is go back, and now I'm going to switch my snowboard out for a dirt bike, and I'm going to do the dirt bike X Games version of it. And I'm going to be doing all sorts of Superman.
Can't get greedy with Mother Nature.
I know.
Your body's telling
I
you.
get it. I know if people out there are enjoying it or wanting to do that. And by the way, I didn't answer, I'm so sorry, your red light question, which is, if you wanted to do it, how can you do it if you're not doing it already? There are, in fact, 2 scientific methods that have been developed. One of them actually has a vague whiff of relationship to the light device, although that's one of those things where if a friend sent it to me or a random person said, oh, Dr. I've seen this in the back of a magazine, how do you think it works? I would just say, please go and spend your $199 on something that is going to
I think I was about 11 or 12 years old. I think it cost something like, I don't know, $10.99 or something, which at the time for me was a lot of money. But I had a paper route. I had a paper route back then. I had a little bit of a dispensable income. But it was cool because it was probably one of my first experiments. I've been running experiments since I was a kid. But I think self-experimentation can be fun, provided it's
I
safe.
can see that. But sorry, coming back to your red light, the 2 methods, one of them is something called the MILD technique, which stands for the mnemonic induction of lucid dreaming, MILD.
Okay. Alright. I think it used to. I think chewing used to help me. It doesn't really as much.
Mnemonic just meaning a memory-based technique. Induction, obviously what we're trying to induce something. And what is it? We're trying to induce lucid dreaming. And it's a very simple technique, which is that you consistently rehearse on and off, on and off. And sure enough, what happens? The lights go on and off. Why? Because it's the real world, and it complies and it's complicit with the laws of physics. So you do this time and time again. You start to train yourself that at unique moments throughout your waking experience, you always go over and you test some version of reality. Or it could just be, I'm going to press my hand into something solid, and this table is resisting my hand right now as I'm pressing, and I just keep doing that. And then at some point, it becomes routine enough that you start to do that same thing when you are dreaming. But now, when I press my hand against the table or press my hand against the wall, my hand goes straight through the wall. Or I flip the light switch on and off, and the lights do nothing. And all of a sudden, that's my cue to say, I'm not awake, am I? I'm dreaming. And therefore, at that point, I gain lucidity, and it increases the probability. So those are the 2 methods that people use. And statistically, scientifically, they do seem to have some degree of success.
I love it. I love it. I personally am going to opt to not encourage lucid dreaming because I'm working on getting my sleep deeper and longer through the night with fewer waking episodes.
We will get that.
We will get there. Using the tools described in the previous and this episode of the series that we're doing here. My sleep's been excellent at times, pretty good at other times, and lousy at others, which I think makes me well qualified to talk about tools for sleep because I feel like I've come at it from every level of performance.
And by the way, shield and sword in hand, I'm right there by your side. We'll make it happen.
Well, thank you, truly. Okay, so sadly, we are nearing the end of this 6-episode series, and here we are in the 6th episode. However, last night, before leaving the studio, I decided to put out a word on social media, on X, aka Twitter, and on Instagram, asking people what questions they have about sleep. And I made it very broadband. I said, ask anything you want about sleep. Matt Walker will do his best to answer. And of course, we had thousands and thousands and thousands of questions. And we're grateful.
Let's push on through till dawn, which completely violates every one of the 6 episodes.
They'll benefit, we'll struggle. However, we were able to bin those responses into most frequently asked, most frequently liked, etc. And so while we can't ask every question.
Charlie, it's great to be with you.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here.
Virtually, I guess. But yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. And so I've already had one episode on lucid dreaming with Robert Wagner. And I think for folks who want more of kind of a how-to, that would be a good place for them to go to maybe learn the techniques. But here I was really hoping to dive into some of the more advanced stuff and like what's really possible here, and what does this tool offer. So I thought to start, we could just get into your background and like, how did you discover lucid dreaming and Tibetan dream yoga, and maybe just defining it for those who are unfamiliar with the term.
Sure. So a lucid dream is a dream where you're actively aware of the fact you're dreaming as the dream is happening. So you're sound asleep. You're not in the kind of hypnagogic, half awake, half asleep state. You're not in a state of astral projection or out of body experience. You're sound asleep in the REM dreaming sleep state. But while in the REM dreaming sleep state, part of the brain becomes reactivated again. which in turn reactivates self-reflective consciousness. And you're basically in the dream and you go, oh, wow, this is all a dream. So if you ever had a dream where you're in the dream and you're like, oh shit, this is all a dream, that was a lucid dream. But you're asleep. You know, this is a really important thing. If you want to know what it looks like to have a lucid dream, it looks like this. Like you're asleep. You're not in some kind of like strange, you know, psychedelic state. You're asleep. But in your mind, you're very much awake.
Yeah, and how did you first discover this as a phenomenon for yourself, and then, you know, ultimately make it kind of like your living and your main focus?
Yeah, so for my 12th birthday, I asked for this thing called the Nova Dreamer, which is like, there's lots of them now on like Kickstarter or versions of these devices. It's like this sleep mask, electronic sleep mask that recognizes rapid eye movement and then flashes red lights through your eyelids, which is supposed to be like bright enough to make it into your dream, but not so bright to wake you up. And like a few weeks before my 12th birthday, it was like a Sunday afternoon, and I'm flicking through this gadget, like a kind of a gadget guide that came with the Sunday papers in the UK. And I see this thing, and I remember reading about it, saying it can give you lucid dreams, being like, oh shit, I've had those before. And then go, oh, dad, like, I know what I want for my birthday. You know, it was like $300 or something. So I didn't get it for my birthday, but that's the first, and confirmed by my dad, actually, who's very, quite a cynical chap, confirmed as the first kind of time I mentioned lucid dreaming and knew that it was something that I did. But it was like I was about 15, 16 when I kind of taught myself to do it. You know, often at that age for young men and young women too, I'm sure you start to question things. You start to feel there's something bigger going on. So I started smoking a lot of weed. I started doing some psychedelics, and I got really into lucid dreaming because lucid dreaming seemed like this ultimate psychedelic experience where you could gain access to like a virtual reality simulation within your own mind, where the rules of society didn't apply. So you could do whatever you liked. So from like 16 to 18, all I did in my lucid dreams was sex and skateboarding. And I got pretty good at skateboarding, which now when you look at all the neurological studies into how training in lucid dream affects waking state performance, oh, maybe it worked. I only wish it had worked with the sex thing. That didn't work at all. But yeah, lots of sex and lots of skateboarding. The sex thing. That training in lucid dream affects waking state performance. Oh, maybe it worked. I only wish it had worked with the sex thing. That didn't work at all. But yeah, lots of sex and lots of skateboarding. So, you know, just messing about with it. But it was a pretty good incentive to do it because it was really fun. And at 16, you're so kind of sex obsessed. It was, at least it gave me an incentive to do it. But of course, there are much better reasons to get into lucid dreaming. Then when I'm 18, like 16 to 18, I had also been into Buddhism. The same time I was into psychedelics, same time I was into lucid dreaming. Buddhism had been on the fringes as something I knew sounded really cool. But when I read all this stuff like no intoxication, the stuff on sexual misconduct, the stuff which I confused, the stuff on, you know, the kind of ethics, how you had to live your life. I thought, you know, I'm a teenager. I want to be wild for a little bit. So, so I kept it on the back burner, but I gave myself this really weird ultimatum, which I stuck to. I said, until the end of college, which in the UK is 16 to 18, I can do what I like, and I'll just party and do loads of drugs and go nuts. The day I leave college, I will shave my head. I had a long ponytail at the time. I would shave my head. I'd become a vegetarian and I'd start going to a Buddhist center. Kind of ridiculous, but I did it. Actually, I did it. I shaved my head and I gave my ponytail to this like organization called Locks of Love, which makes these wigs for kids with leukemia. Then they send you a little photo of the kid with your wig. It's kind of sweet. And you know, it's ridiculous. You don't have to shave your head to be a Buddhist. You don't even need to be a vegetarian to be a Buddhist. It can help, but you don't have to. But I did that. And then I started going to Buddhist centers. And the same kind of, I guess there's a part of my personality that's luckily obsessive, not addictive, but it's close, but it's obsessive. So the same kind of obsession I'd put towards, you know, psychedelics and lucid dreaming and stuff like that, I then just flipped into Buddhism. I got really into Buddhism really quick. So much so that by the time I was 19, I'd taken refuge, which is like where you formally become a Buddhist. They give you a new name, they take some of your hair and all this kind of stuff. And then once I really got into Buddhism, I started hearing people mention this term dream yoga, which I'd read about in some of the early lucid dreaming books, but didn't really know exactly what it was. So then I started following teachers who were teaching it, and got some practices. And the practices themselves actually were reasonably similar to the Western practices, or the Western practices kind of taking them from dream yoga. But the end goal was completely different. It was stuff like doing your meditation practice in the lucid dream, going into the lucid dream and transforming your body into the body of a deity or a Buddha as a way to kind of free up the ego fixation we have around our gross corporeal form, really deep stuff. And I kind of had this moment of, oh shit, okay, this is something I've been messing around with for the last 2-3 years, but this is what it's for. This is a powerful spiritual practice. So then I got really into lucid dreaming, ended up living in a Buddhist center for 7 years, almost 8 years, specialized in, and I did, and then version, but yeah, a lot of other stuff happened, but that's the,
just kind of playing around with it. And I think that's where probably most people are at with, if they've discovered lucid dreaming. You got to get the 2 F's out of the way: flying and having sex.
yeah.
And honestly, that's been a lot of my practice up until discovering that this is also a way to train the mind in some really profound ways. And the Tibetans really are the masters at this. And, it sounds like you've studied under some of the greatest living dream yoga masters. I wonder if, before we get into like what's really possible with this practice, we could just address the science, because I know there might be folks listening who are like, well, I'm not a Buddhist. Like I don't I don't consider myself necessarily a Buddhist or even maybe spiritual, but what are they talking about here? Is there any real validity to it? So could you explain some of the cool science behind lucid dreaming?
Sure. So the first thing to know is that lucid dreaming is scientifically validated fact. It's been scientifically validated since like the mid 70s. It was actually in the UK that they first proved it. But then a few years later, you got peer-reviewed research over at Stanford University in the US in the early 80s. And then around 2010, you get this big upsurge in interest in lucid dreaming, partly because the Inception movie came out, but partly also because they got someone to have a lucid dream in a brain scanner for the first time. So not just EEG, but fMRI, which is like a live image of the brain. Now, I've been in one of those scanners for this meditation thing where they want to see whether you've changed your brain in meditation. And it turns out I haven't changed my brain at all. But anyway, I went into this study and they put me in one of these machines. And I remember feeling so fucking claustrophobic in here. And it's so loud because this magnet spins around you and it goes, duk, 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 duk. Sounds like a techno rave. And when I was in there, I remember I did think to myself, like, how could anyone fall asleep in here? But some dude in Germany at Heidelberg University did manage to fall asleep in one. And he was a proficient lucid dreamer and he had a lucid dream. And they saw exactly what happens to the brain when you become lucid. And once we had that, it was like the vote set in. This is real. And it's so cool. And it's just what they expected would happen. When you are in a state of non-lucid dreaming, so your everyday, dreams where you don't know you're dreaming, the back part of the brain's highly activated. So the visual cortex, the occipital lobe, the brain stem, they're like going off like fireworks. Like, in fact, your brain's more active when you dream than it is right now when we're just chilling. So dreaming is not a restful sleep state. It's a lot of stuff's going on. In fact, it's so non-restful when you dream, you burn calories. So anyone looking to go on a diet or something, dream more. So back part of the brain's highly active when you dream. Front part of the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, very, very little activity. Now, the scientists would explain this, obviously in a different way to the way the Buddhists would, but the scientists would explain it saying that this is because prefrontal cortex activation is synonymous with activation of the sense of self. So your kind of me, my, I program, that the program of Charlie seems to be located or at least activated with prefrontal cortex activity. Because the prefrontal cortex has such little activity in normal dreaming, this is why you can dream you're people other than yourself. This is how you can dream you're a child if you're an adult, a woman if you're a man, an animal if you're a human. Because that prefrontal cortex has such low activity, your sense of self can be very flexible. However, once you become lucid, and they saw this in the brain scanner, suddenly the prefrontal cortex, boom, lights up at the same time as the back part of the brain is still highly active. So it creates this hybrid state of both dreaming and self-reflective awareness. And that's how they kind of first proved beyond doubt that lucid dreaming was a real phenomenon. But here's the money shot. Here's the cool bit. They found that once the prefrontal cortex lights up, the brain doesn't think that you're dreaming about doing something in a lucid dream. The brain thinks you're awake. You know, we, in a very reductionist model, assume that wakefulness is based on having your eyes open. Sorry, consciousness is based on having your eyes open. It's not. Consciousness is based, well, in this reductionist model, on this activation of certain brain regions.
I don't know. I don't think it'd really help me now at this point.
From the brain's point of view, when you're in a lucid dream, you're not dreaming, you're awake. So because of that, the brain lays down neural pathways and engages the phenomenon of neuroplasticity in exactly the same way as if you were awake. What does this mean? It means there's a potential to learn and actually rewire your brain while you sleep. Now, that sounds like a hyperbolic statement. You know, it sounds crazy. It's not. That's absolutely factual. And we've had studies on this. Again, at Heidelberg, the Germans have done a lot of while you sleep. Now, that sounds like a hyperbolic statement. You know, it means there's a potential to aim that you're in a lucid dream. You're not dreaming, you're awake. So because of that, the brain lays down neural pathways and engages the phenomenon of neuroplasticity in exactly the same way as if you were awake. What does this mean? It means there's a potential to learn and actually rewire your brain while you sleep. Now, that sounds like a hyperbolic statement. You know, it sounds crazy. It's not. That's absolutely factual. And we've had studies on this. Again, at Heidelberg, the Germans have done a lot of research on lucid dreaming with athletes. They found if athletes practice their athletic discipline in the lucid dream, so they're totally asleep, right? But they're like, oh shit, I'm dreaming. What was I supposed to do? Oh, I'm part of this study. I was supposed to do squats or to do press ups or whatever it is they told them to do. Or in one case, to flick a I don't actually know that study, but they had to flick something. They had to do a repeated task, you know, kind of like a shooting a basket or something, flicking something into someone. They repeated this task, the squats or the press ups. And then the next day they like test them and they see, compared to the control group who were doing visualized training, imagine doing squats or press ups, whatever, the guys in the lucid dream were like remarkably better. It was as if they had actually been doing press ups. Some of them, their personal best increased. Even though they were totally asleep, right? I mean, this is nuts. In some cases, it even led to increased muscle mass. Now, of course, the muscle mass was not being gained in the lucid dream. You're asleep. But the neural pathways, which were towards like, I like doing squats, or I find squats easy to do in the zero gravity of the lucid dream, was somehow kind of transferring across into the waking state. And one of the last study, this was a 2019 study I was part of, which had martial artists. So I'm really into martial arts and obviously really into lucid dreaming. So this study comes up and I was like, yes, I'm totally up for this. We had to go into the lucid dream state and practice a certain kick sequence, like kickboxing.
I'm gonna go to the All right. So
kick sequence, and then see if you got better in the waking state. 80.1% of the participants got better at martial arts by training in their lucid dream. I, embarrassingly, was one of the 19% who did not get better. I did not have any increase in performance. So maybe I just did it wrong, or I had performance anxiety, but I didn't actually get better. But, 80.1% did. This is freaking crazy. This is the kind of stuff that I want people to be Googling. I want your bullshit sense to be going off, and this is bullshit. Google it. It is all there. This stuff is for real. So why don't people know about it? I don't know. My mission is to try and let people know about this.
Yeah.
So the brain, again, it comes down to this. In a lucid dream, the brain doesn't think you're dreaming about it. The brain thinks you're doing it. But imagine what other stuff we could do. Imagine if we could practice being kinder in our lucid dream. Imagine if we practice kindness. Imagine if we could practice tolerance and love. There's a guy I work with who had actually, what is it? Is it ADHD? Where he was kind of scared of germs and stuff like that. Didn't like touching things.
Yeah, hypochondria maybe, or OCD.
OCD, sorry, that's it. Excuse my ignorance. And he wanted to go into the lucid dream and call out, get rid of my OCD, get rid of my OCD. He said, oh, well, it's kind of like a state of hypnosis. Maybe it can kind of reprogram my brain. And I was like, no, man, do the opposite. Go into the lucid dream and do what you're scared of doing. Shaking people's hands, touching things, knowing that there's no germs in there. There's no people you're really touching. It's all a virtual reality simulation, but the brain doesn't know that. The brain thinks, oh, wait, are we cool with touching people now? Are we cool with shaking hands? I think we are. So it starts rewiring itself in favor of that. So the brain changes in lucid dream. It really is that real. So then when we come down to flying, this is the cool thing. What the frick is happening in your brain when you fly in a lucid dream? Because the brain doesn't think you're imagining it. I like to imagine, this is complete conjecture. I like to imagine that when you walk through a wall in a lucid dream, or when you fly through the sky in a lucid dream, or when you embrace a monster in a lucid dream, knowing that it's just a traumatized aspect of your own psyche, that in some way, the brain is reprogramming itself to make it more possible to fly beyond your limitations in the waking state, walk through the brick wall of your own ignorance in the waking state, embrace the demons of your own prejudice in the waking state. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. I mean, and like you said, the scientific community didn't really take this seriously, even after it was proven initially, and then Stephen LaBerge kind of popularized it, the Stanford neuroscientist, and then there's more and more research around it, and it really does poke a hole in, or it has profound implications for the mind and for our waking state, and to what extent our waking reality is just a a projection in our own minds. Now, obviously, there are limitations to the waking state. There's physics that like hold up most of the time, at least on a not when you get down to the really micro level, but most of the time in the macro world. And like you said, there's also just there's all this potential for kind of reprogramming our default perceptions and beliefs in the waking state. In addition to all these kind of more practical uses like training, there's so much money being poured into like virtual reality games and goggles, and this is a skill that anyone can learn. So I think you're right. Like, I don't know why more people aren't trying to learn this and aware of it. But yeah, let's talk about some of that stuff you started to talk about, like shattering limiting beliefs by walking through walls and stuff, because this has become really interesting to me. Like, I became lucid a couple weeks ago and I tried to fly, and initially I couldn't fly and it just seemed impossible. And then eventually, after several tries, I was like, wait a second. And because I've been taking your course, and I was like,
Oh, cool.
I should just call out, I should just tell myself in the dream, like, this is a dream, I can do what I want. And
Yes.
I made that resolution. I think I said that out loud, and then all of a sudden I could fly. So it was like, but it was like this really liberating experience of, I had this limiting belief that I couldn't do what I wanted to, and it was all in my mind. And obviously that doesn't mean I can do stuff like that in the waking state, but it means that there's other limiting beliefs, like you said, that might have disappeared. So yeah, what are some applications of that? What are some other examples of similar ways of kind of like, reprogramming our baseline perceptions using lucid dreaming?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, man. That's absolutely a brilliant example. That once you remind yourself that in the lucid dream state, nothing is more easy or difficult than anything else, other than that which our limitations, our waking state limitations, say it is, you really start to open up to something quite profound. It's like when you try and walk through a wall in a lucid dream and it seems solid, it's not the wall that's solid, it's your sense of self that's solid. That's what's bouncing back from the wall. So if you can remind yourself, just as you did when you tried to fly, that I'm in a dream, the sense of self is flexible. In fact, everything is me, not just this me, that the kind of avatar in the dream, that starts to break apart. And you suddenly realize, oh, I can now do impossible things. And actually, if you look at, you know what, there's a way we can explore both. We can explore the traditional Tibetan dream yoga stuff at the same time as looking at the psychological and even scientific benefits of this. In Tibetan dream yoga, there's lots of different schools, but in one of the most, the early school introduced by Padmasambhava into Tibet, there are these 4 stages of dream yoga. The first stage is recognition. That's basically learn how to lucid dream. That's the recognition stage. So, and I've spoken to my teacher about this, and he said, oh, Western techniques, Tibetan techniques, whatever helps people get lucid. He said, they're all the same anyway. So don't feel you need to learn these like esoteric Tibetan techniques. Most of the Western ones are based upon them anyway. They're just kind of pared down versions. So number 1, learn how to lucid dream. Number 2, so the first thing, this kind of second stage of dream yoga, the first thing you're told to do when you get lucid is to transform fear. So do scary stuff in the lucid dream. And the original texts say things like jump from a high place, knowing that you cannot die. Walk into fire, knowing that you cannot be burnt. Jump in a river, knowing the river cannot harm you. Call forth a tiger into the dream. And then you have options. You can transform the tiger into a deity. You can befriend the tiger. You can ride the tiger like a friendly horse. In many ways, they're just kind of pared down versions. So number one, learn how to lucid dream. Number two, so the first thing, this kind of second stage of dream yoga, the first thing you're told to do when you get lucid is to transform fear. So do scary stuff in the lucid dream. And the original text say things like jump from a high place, knowing that you cannot die. Walk into fire.